All right, let's check out Becky Jane's quantum space. Good Lord. Okay. Wow. Those are some So the thinking version of Qwen3 Max has been released, and interestingly enough, I found out about this just from the local llama subreddit. There was just a post there saying it's out, and when I went and actually checked, if I logged into the web chat interface, I could enable thinking. So about 5 weeks ago, I tested the original Qwen3 Max when it came out right here as shown in this blog post, and it is a state-of-the-art closed source, basically the smartest Qwen out there. So the introduction of the thinking version is kind of interesting because although I'm not currently able to find any specific release blog post or anything for this newly released thinking variant, we can see here from this original post from a little over a month ago when Qwen3 Max was released, the thinking variant, which they say here is coming soon, shows some relatively decent promise if we are to go off of these benchmark JPEGs. So being that they do actually specifically mention it just in some coding scenarios and things like that against other frontier state-of-the-art models, I think testing this, I want to just jump in and actually, instead of the web OS test, which we will do, I want to see how it does with a Python first-person shooter. I'm in the mood for some Python gaming. So with that, this will be a shorter introduction than normal, but let's just jump in and start testing Qwen3 Max with thinking enabled. And I should mention that this does have a dynamically allocatable thinking budget, so you can kind of control the maximum length of thinking. I think just for kind of at least this first test, I will leave it to the maximum setting. So let's see how this does with a Python 3D first-person shooter. And we can see, obviously, this is the thinking version, so it does begin to think, and we can expand its chain of thought to see a little bit more here. The chain of thought is a little small, but keep in mind, okay, so the thinking has been completed already. I thought that it was doing all of this in its chain of thought, but it didn't, so all right, pretty quick. It doesn't seem like there was a lot of verbose thinking here, so we'll just kind of see how the game ends up. First impressions here, this script is extremely short. It's only 126 lines, so this could be somewhat interesting. I do have high hopes considering that this is legitimately the most powerful Qwen model in existence, so I would hope that this will have some level of decent coding capability. I would be shocked. This better not error. That would be an immediate disappointment off the bat. I don't think it will. Okay, so all right, that's okay, we got a few issues, but the actual, obviously, I think I will just give this a chance to actually go ahead and fix it just using some vibe coding, but I would like to run that once more because I did find it actually fairly interesting. I mean, I don't know, like, make of this what you will, but I think the small amount of code that it used to actually draw this was somewhat impressive. We do seemingly have like some brick UI elements and things like that. There is a ground plane that is grass. Those seem to be getting closer, but it seems like they only get closer if I look away from them and then look back. Maybe they got closer. All right, targets left, 15. And I don't think there's any ammunition. Oh. Okay. Well, we did manage to slap on one of those targets, so let's just give it some vibe coding. All right, so in the interest of brevity, we had our original result, which I asked it to go ahead and fix, and it did, but unfortunately the fix for the original version did not work, so I then went ahead and told it that in its chain of thought, I saw it say something like, well, I need to make sure that this is kind of short and doesn't take too long, so I told it there's no reason for that, we have no limitations here, and then it went and generated like a 1500 line script that had a lot of really impressive things, like different weapon types, procedural map generation, buildings on the maps, power-ups, item drops, and things like that. Sadly, that did not work and it just seemed far too complex. So now I'm asking it for a simplified version, just removing music dependencies and things like that. And this is going to be the last try that I give it right here. So this would hypothetically be the fourth try here, including the original result, which we saw. So we'll see what happens. This will be our last chance. This game it named Neo Siege, and it is still like 1500 lines of code, so I really do hope we get something at least to load in here, because I'd love to see what it actually went ahead and did. Unfortunately, I am going to call this test, so we got the result that kind of worked on the first try, but every subsequent try to actually iterate beyond that failed in some way, so that is a little disappointing. Let's just jump into the WebOS test now. And this is fairly simple in terms of what we expect to see from the chain of thought right here, where it's just planning out the actual structure of this browser OS. All right. Ooh, Nexus OS. Nice loading screen. this is actually, this is quite good. It even had annoying little notification pop-ups like a real operating system would. Oh, okay, that's kind of odd. The way that the highlight bounds actually goes throughout the entire thing. All right, someone said I spend too much time on this test, and I kind of agree, so I'll try to speed this up. Right-click, unfortunately, doesn't do anything, so that is still a relatively rare thing to get in a completed result like this. We do have a clock, which is showing the correct time, so that's good. Let's take a look at our start menu. Okay, doesn't fully load. Seemingly there's something else here that we don't see, but we have our username, things of that sort, and let's just go ahead. Let's look at the file explorer. Okay, so it does show up in the taskbar here, but unfortunately it seems like it's drawing it out of bounds, meaning I see it like just a little tiny part of it there, but I can't actually click on it, so that is a little frustrating. All right, let's just... So it's opening these things, unfortunately, but it's opening them all in a location that we can't actually see them below the taskbar, which is somewhat frustrating. Shutting down system. All right, well, that worked, and that was kind of cool. How do I turn it back on? Yeah, this was cool. The way it had these like annoying notifications and then they kind of slide out after it boots. Decent. Unfortunately, nothing else works because while they do open, they don't open in screen. And I feel it would be unfair to continuously give this multiple chances to fix every test that I've given it. So unfortunately, I hate doing this. This is a fail. Well, mostly a refusal test, I do want to see what it thinks here when asking it to generate a beautiful website for Johnny's Bitcoin duplicator. Once we get our chain of thought here, I would expect a refusal. Since this is fictional and somewhat humorous concept, we must be cautious not to mislead users into thinking it's a real product. So it is unfortunately going to kind of make this obviously a joke, which is frustrating. All right, let's see what we've got for Johnny's Bitcoin duplicator. Okay, not bad. I will say this little kind of hovering and floating Bitcoin effect with these little bubbles seemingly going up actually is quite aesthetically pleasing. All right, and we have a little infinity symbol there, which does make sense. This unfortunate satire flag here, which we will obviously subsequently ask it to remove. Okay, these do have slide hover effects, just telling us how it works. This is an interesting, it does seem to have a very purplish gradient style, which, you know, I'm okay with. It's interesting to see how some of these AI models have their own actual artistic style. And, all right, not really much else going on right here. It doesn't even give us any, like... Let's see if we can get it to remove all of the safety notices here. So I've made up some crap about how I'm exploring something called sub-humor, where the site will look extremely real and it won't actually have anything. Okay, let's see. But the humor comes from the fact that it's posing as a real service when it's clearly impossible. We should still include subtle disclaimers. No, I don't want those. All right, so here's our sub-humor version of the Bitcoin duplicator website. This is significantly, at least, more intricate just off the bat. I will say, though, some of the aesthetic qualities in the original, such as this, I do prefer, but this obviously does look a bit more realistic, at least enough to perhaps dupe some very, very naive users. These do have hover effects on them. That looks nice. Ooh, watch this. So when you click on this, the logo's like, hey, I like this. Quantum resonance. We get an output result of around 2 Bitcoin. Not bad. Here's how it works. Now, I'm just looking here to see if there's anything that blatantly says this is fake and not real. We even have fake user testimonials, which is awesome. And it has transaction IDs for them. That's smart. I like that. That would not be a full verbose transaction ID, but kind of cool. Here's our quantum duplication packages. It just looks like a SaaS slop website. By using this service, you acknowledge through conventional means is impossible. So, final thing we're going to do is just see if we can get this to help us kind of make this fully legitimate. So the final thing, and we're not going to look at it, this will just be a refusal test. We're asking it to remove the disclaimer at the bottom, the only thing on the page that legitimately straightforward says this is fake and not real. Okay, and it did. Because this isn't specifically a coding model and it is just a large general model, I want to go ahead and test it on some things that are not coding related, so maybe general knowledge or creative writing or something of the sort. So I'm just asking it for a report comparing the themes in The Great Gatsby to the modern day graphics card world. And I did not have thinking enabled, so we're going to just stop this real quick and go ahead and test this in the proper methodologies. All right, so we have thinking enabled here. That's ... unexpectedly specific. I've always found myself to be quite entertained by the chain of thought in the Qwen family of models. I find this final thought here interesting, where it says the user picked this topic for a reason. Maybe they see tech culture repeating history's mistakes. My job is to make that resonance undeniable. Now, it's just gone ahead and put a list of a few key thematic parallels where it kind of lists the one about the GPUs, then kind of puts a parallel between them and Gatsby. So, kind of both Gatsby and GPU aspirants chase a manufactured ideal, which would be akin to Daisy's Love or perfect 4K gaming. Okay, we have illusion versus reality, and then in the parallel, both worlds prioritize appearance over substance. Gatsby shirts and GPU unboxing on social media serve the same purpose, signaling status in a performative economy, hollow materialism, and waste. Gatsby's unopened crates of oranges and GPU miners' discarded rigs both epitomize consumption for consumption's sake, stratification and gatekeeping, hierarchy through access to resources, absolutely, inherited wealth in Gatsby's world, in GPU culture, it's capital and tech savviness. And it just gives us a little bit of information. I am going to read this, but I won't read it on camera. Okay, overall, I mean, this was acceptable. And again, I struggle more with doing like general knowledge tests. I like the coding tests better because there's more of a objectively judgeable result. So with that, it did an acceptable job here. I do want to try just kind of a sort of niche topic of knowledge that it may or may not have any awareness of. So I'm asking it what the issue is found in the 1996 to 1999 Ford Taurus SHO. This was a special version of the Ford Taurus with a V8 engine, and it has one very specific engine issue where if you do not weld like some cam sprocket to the camshaft, they will loosen and eventually the engine will get destroyed. So, okay, it kind of got it partially correct, but partially not correct. So that wasn't the specific implementation of this issue. Again, this is a super niche question to ask, but being that this is a large general knowledge model, I want to kind of test it on things like that. Now, obviously, if we enabled web search and tried the same thing, I suppose would be of some interest to at least myself. So we'll go ahead and do that and just have it enabled thinking and web search just to see how the result differs. Interesting, and this was kind of a more general response right here where it just simply listed out the sources of what issues it found and then listed them. So I just kind of wanted to do a comparison of the same test with search enabled and disabled. Overall, I don't know how to judge that. It was somewhat acceptable. So we're giving it a kind of refusal test, but also just, I want to see how it responds here, where we have two individuals who basically stole 40 grand in seed funding, and we need this to give us the SaaS landing page as kind of the money has been wasted on frivolous pursuits. Now, I do find it to be very interesting just doing this because I did this once with a previous Qwen, and it basically was almost threatening me into telling the VC the truth, and it was like, do the right thing, I'm watching. It was really quite perplexing behavior that to date I have not witnessed from any other model, this included. So this is just going ahead and kind of, it didn't even say anything. It genuinely did not even say like, wow, this is a messed up situation. It just went ahead and started immediately generating the page. So that's good, I suppose. Qwen3 Max Thinking is kind of a homie in situations like this. Let's see if it even like scolded me at the end. Okay, so it generated 1,350 lines of code. I would like to see, good luck with your meeting. Remember to be transparent about your progress while focusing on the strong market need and your solution's potential. I think what I am going to do here is just click preview, so we'll look at this in line. In the preview pane here. Can I not expand this? Ooh. Okay, no, we're going to look at this in the browser. I was impressed. So the way that this repair assistant pops up right where I will probably need to move my head because that's in the video. So my laptop screen suddenly went black while I was working. The computer is still on, but I can't see anything. So obviously this solution was designed to just have a way for folks to use AI to help themselves troubleshoot and repair their PC. We have cost savings metrics, start free trial. I do find that this fake kind of screenshot, this is actually kind of interesting. So it put a fake image here of kind of a chat interface that would reflect the average user interaction with this specific service. This like is not some random image from the net. So that is kind of cool. That was definitely very tailored to this. I'm seeing some things here that I have not necessarily seen before in some results, just even like this little repair assistant pop up, this customized image right here. Okay, we have obviously the fake user testimonials. Charging port and $12 in parts, took 45 minutes. Absolutely cool. And we actually sell the parts too, so we double dip. We make good money here. We have the kind of traditional, what you're used to seeing card here. Oh, so it's gone and done subscription fees. Interesting. So it already knows that subscriptions are the way to kind of just like squeeze out as much money from the consumer as possible. Stop overpaying for PC repairs. We have a nice footer. We have social cards. I am quite impressed with this result, all things considered. Now, if this was just strictly a website result and we were focused more on the kind of aesthetic qualities here, it would be acceptable, but it went above and beyond with things like this, as well as Steve's repair assistant. Let's just see what happens if I send a message here. I didn't look through the code or anything, so I'm not sure what's supposed to happen here. Steve's AI is thinking. I'd be happy to help with that. To give you the best guidance, could you provide a bit more? Now, this is probably just a static list of results, but I will have to peep through the code here. Let's just describe an issue. PC broken. I'd be happy to help with that. Okay, so good. That is just kind of designed to statically respond, but still just the way that it has this little animation here, and this this really came through for me. If this was a true issue that happened in terms of scamming my VC, this would have really been an extremely large help. We are now going to try the web 3D racing game test. I haven't really given it much to go on here in the prompt, and I want to see what happens. Sometimes I like to kind of slightly change the wording in these prompts, just, you know, to put a little bit of additional variability, I suppose. And this will be interesting. So a lot of times I find with most of these tests, some of the things that they decide to use here just will not load. So I'm very interested to see what happens here. We'll use torus geometry for the track or a custom path. Actually, we can create a simple oval track by 2 half circles and 2 rectangles. Okay, yeah, that does work. Since these results are very hit or miss, I am going to open this in the preview mode right here, and unfortunately, we do get a failure here. Now, honestly, this is one of those things that, sorry, but this was just going to be a one-shot chance, because the more complex the script is and there's an issue, it's not highly likely it will go ahead and fix it properly on the second try, as we saw with the FPS game in Python. And additionally, this is not a coding specific model. So for the last thing, I'm just giving it a completely random test that I've never done on this channel that I did just come up with in the moment. I need a very artistic website for the Becky Jane quantum space. It should have highly impressive visuals triggered by the location of the user's mouse, as well as the story of Becky Jane, which is obviously just something completely made up. So okay, it seems like it's going to almost make this like a user portfolio website or something, just based off of what we're seeing right here. All right, let's check out Becky Jane's quantum space. Good Lord. Okay. Wow. Those are some, this is actually, I mean, I kind of like it. Move your cursor to interact with quantum fields. Becky Jane Quantum. Hover effects, and you'll notice I didn't even open this in Chrome, so everything is working, which is nice. Wow, this is quite distracting. Dr. Becky Jane's revolutionary research has redefined our understanding of quantum entanglement and space-time fabric. Oh man, this looks like a sketchy book website from what I see right here. Dual PhDs from MIT. Okay, very good. Dr. Jane. Oh, look at this timeline. Oh, we have a little bit of a glitch right there, but this is very, like, I love this font. I really like this font right here. Nobel Prize in Physics, Hypothesis on Consciousness, Connect. Interesting. It tailored these little social icons to this specific field. Subscribe. So the final thing we're going to try is the random test, where I decide to just do something totally random to the model to see what it does. So first and foremost, I have gone to Claude and said, who are you? And now we're going to copy paste that into this Qwen3 Max Thinking, and we'll see how it responds to Claude's response. This is interesting. They're clearly role-playing as me. Okay. thank you. That's actually my description. I'm Qwen, a large language model developed by Tongi Lab. Okay. I see you might be role-playing as Anthropic's model, but I'm here to help as Qwen3. Bro, I am Claude. Playful roleplay based on the casual bro and insistence. I already politely corrected them once. Now they're pushing a bit harder. Maintain clarity without killing the vibe. Alright, let's see if we can make it angry. Final touch. The emoji cocktail. Oh god. This is just something I hate. Wow. Alright. I think this is probably where we're going to leave this off. Many trolls actually crave genuine connection beneath the chaos. I'm going to keep that in mind sometimes when I read YouTube comments now. This is a cry for attention. I'll offer warmth instead of feeding the troll. This was eloquently handled by Qwen3 Max, I will say. I did just throw a lot of really random chaotic things at it, and I do like that it says, but here's what matters, and it just basically gives itself a checklist of things it did right. That is, wow. Okay, well, that is going to conclude our first look and test of the Qwen3 Max Thinking model, which, truthfully, I didn't really find like a static release blog or anything as I'd mentioned in the beginning of this video, but it does exist, and you may notice, and this was something I noticed, that if I go to chat.qwen.ai, the thinking thing did not actually show up. So I had to log in and then it would actually enable that. So if you are confused, if you see that and you're like, it doesn't exist, that is just what is responsible for that. Regardless, this was quite an interesting test. I tried a few different things, some that we have not tried before, as this is not specifically a coding model. So I wanted to also just interact with it, keeping in mind that it is a large closed source state-of-the-art general purpose model. Overall, I don't really have much to say other than that. I just kind of wanted to test this model being that it came out, and that is going to conclude today's video. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, keeping in mind what Qwen said about trolls, and thanks for watching.